The Midwest was formed by explorers, those who were willing to risk everything to see a better future. While our lands are still rich with agriculture, we are more than just flyover country. Our former cow towns are now business hubs and technology innovators. On this show, we tell the stories of folks marketing in the middle. This is the Midwest Marketing Show. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Midwest Marketing Show. Today I'm excited we have an in-studio guest for the first time in probably several months. I have Elizabeth Alex from Unbound. And for you folks in Kansas City, you'll definitely recognize her as the anchor of 41 Action News. When I was growing up, when I became an adult and I started watching news, Elizabeth was my anchor. And so I was very excited to see her make a shift into social media and marketing and to be able to have her on the show. So
Good
welcome.
morning. Thanks for inviting me. And you're not the only person who said I grew up with you. So
Oh, that's awesome. So can you tell us a little bit more about your time in television journalism? Because I think a lot of us we're way interested in this visual aspect of storytelling.
Well, I think I got into television news in part. I started off at the campus radio station at the University of Arkansas, and I was actually in school I was looking at law school and social work. I wasn't really sure, and I went to the campus radio station with a friend of mine in my sorority, and she was in the news side, and they let me read the weather, and I still have that little copy that I read from the weather, and I was kind of hooked, and I liked the idea of telling a story and creating change and doing good for the world by telling stories.
Mm-hmm.
And I really love video. So going into TV news was just very natural to me. And some of the stories that I've been able to cover and show those really visual images through video have just been, just empowering to so many people throughout the world and, just really satisfying to me.
Yeah, and you've won a few Emmys, right?
I have,
Yeah, that's awesome. But now you're the Communications Outreach and Media Relations Director. I love that
Community
title.
Outreach and Media Relations Director, yeah.
Yeah, so, but for a company called Unbound here locally. And so some people might not know who Unbound is because of the name change.
Well, they didn't really know before. And it's a fascinating story that Unbound has. We were founded in 1981 by a group of friends, of siblings and their friend.
Mm-hmm.
And they wanted to create change in the world and help families who are living in poverty create their own path out of poverty. And it was called Christian Foundation for Children and Aging. And it was, they were very under the radar. They started with their Christmas card list in 1981, and they built it up to be working in 20, we were in 20 countries around the world. We are the largest nonprofit in the state of Kansas.
Oh, wow.
We have a $120 million budget that mostly comes in $30 checks from people around the world who want to make a difference. Individuals who want to make a difference with another individual. So that's a great story to tell.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know you guys were the largest nonprofit. I remember driving to one of our clients down the boulevard and seeing off to the side and going, what is that place? Because you see these multiple buildings and you saw the cross, but I was like, it wouldn't be a church right there. And then when Unbound, rebranded.
Yeah. Well, we were founded by lay Catholics and in the spirit of Catholic social teaching. And we appeal to everybody. We have people around the world who are Hindu and Muslim and evangelical, indigenous peoples that we work with. So we don't convert. We don't tell people how to live their lives religiously, but we do, we follow those tenets.
Exactly.
And we appeal to people who are Catholic and people who are non-Catholic who just share our values. So we have people from across the spectrum. But a few years ago, it really became clear, then just the name, people couldn't even remember to say it. It was really difficult, and it was not good for a digital world either. So we just kind of looked around and decided we would try to rebrand in a way that really fit who we are and what we do in the world. And the colors represent the great bold colors of the field. There's just beautiful tapestries around the world and with the families we work with. And Unbound was a perfect name that we came up with just because it frees people from poverty. They are not bound by the chains of poverty or being marginalized or oppression once you create that path for yourself. So it worked out well for us.
Oh, I love it. I mean, I've I've done some mission work in Haiti and even in Poland, and even though they seem polar opposites, they all face the same problem. It's this push down in poverty that somebody just needs to open up the door and allow for opportunity.
That's exactly right. And that's pretty much what Unbound does. And we believe that people around the world, and we know, we've seen it, I've seen it personally so many times, that people in poverty are smart. They have great ideas. They know what to do for their families. Nobody cares more about a child than their own parents do.
Yeah.
So what they just need is a little bit of a chance or a space to create, their own path. And it's sort of a deal if you're trying to feed your family that day. If you go to
Mhm.
work that day to try to get enough money to have food that day, you don't really have much time or space to plan or to
Yeah.
build a little business or to get your child educated. But when you just have a little bit of help and just gives you a little bit of cushion, amazing things can happen, especially with some of these incredible leaders and
Oh,
bright
yeah.
people around the world.
And it's helping without hurting. It's giving them opportunity. I mean, some people, they don't even understand how the price of a brick is like a major piece of most families' monthly income.
Unaffordable. Yeah.
Exactly. And so it's one brick at a time to build their house. And you can't take that away from them. You can't just build the house for them. You got to give them extra opportunity and allow for the kids to go to school so they can work more and different aspects of it. So it's great to see that you guys are doing that. But what I really want to kind of talk about
Sorry,
is
I got
this.
you off on that
No,
other
no, no.
tangent.
I could talk about overseas mission and for years. But I want to talk about this transition a little bit from
Hmm.
news, where you're on at 10, on at 9, all the different times, to now going into this media relations and social media aspect. What's that current role like, and what was the transition like?
Well, I partly because I covered so many stories. I covered from Afghanistan and I in the Gaza Strip to Uzbekistan, and as I think you knew, I went with Medical Missions Foundation to
Mhm.
Romania and Guatemala, and I just started finding, I guess, sort of bringing those roots of maybe wanting to be a social worker to life,
Yeah.
and I knew eventually that wanting to do something with storytelling skills to be just helping people was where I wanted to go eventually. And at the time, it does get old working until 11 o'clock at night, and
Mhm.
you do miss a lot. And my daughter was just about to turn 13 at the time,
Oh,
and I
wow.
thought these teenagers are probably a good idea for me to be home at night.
Mhm.
So I was sort of looking to make that kind of a transition, but I still wanted to tell stories, and I still wanted to work with video as much as I could and tell stories that way. So that's kind of how I was viewing my transition into, and certainly into nonprofit.
Yeah. So what does your kind of day-to-day activities, what do they look like now?
Well, I kind of am. I don't know. I'm looking at your Scrum board over there, and I don't know if it would really follow. You might
It's all
you
right.
might be
I'm
frustrated with me.
crazy planner.
um, I have I'm a lot. I have the social media strategy is in my
Mhm.
department, and so I'm a lot. I look at social media. I'm monitoring. I create social media posts that we're going to do, and I do a lot of monitoring of news events. Like we have a lot of, I mean, we have like 38,000 sponsored kids in
Wow.
Guatemala,
Yeah.
and watching all the unrest in Guatemala this last few weeks just makes me kind of want to have my finger on the pulse of what's happening. And so we can let people who are sponsors or potential sponsors know what's happening. I
Mhm.
monitor a lot of the news stories, whether it's about trafficking or child labor or the border crisis, because all of those things affect families where we work.
Yeah.
And they are also good reasons for you to want to get involved with us because you can create a change with these really complicated issues by sponsoring one individual child. You can make your own change like that. So I'm
Absolutely.
always trying to see, how that's looking and what that landscape is like. And you can't have your whole news feed anywhere on Twitter or Google Plus or on Facebook, only those things. So
Yeah.
you have to have those fun moments, those memorable moments, quote graphics, just other ideas of how we work in the world. Those little nuggets and kernels of life that are memorable, and people will
Mhm.
make them say, "Oh, I can make a difference," just like this person did. So that's a lot of what I do. I sort of monitor and look around and kind of stay in touch with what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
I'm also working on some projects with public relations or media relations. It's hard working for an organization that has our core business is not here.
Yeah.
And so you're trying to get news media to understand what you're doing and cover it. And from being a television news journalist, I'd be like, well, you don't have anything for
Yeah.
me to see, so
Exactly.
how am I going to do this? So I'm working a lot on reaching out to journalists in ways that are outside the box, in ways
Mhm.
that people haven't thought of yet. And I've been successful with a few of those things. We also do a lot of reaching out to journalists nationally and internationally, because we try to work, in the countries where we work, we try to let them know what's happening.
Oh, yeah.
And so I spend a good bit of time doing that. And then we have community outreach. So I do a lot of speaking events and organizing speaking events and being a part of the management team too.
Yeah.
That's not the most exciting part. I do a lot of
Exactly.
meetings with
There's
that.
people,
So
people and problems. Yeah, the time I spent in Haiti, CNN was there, or not CNN, 60 Minutes was there. And so they didn't have a place to stay anymore. This was right after the earthquake. And so we invited him to stay in our camp. And it was the first time I actually got to see behind the scenes what a national TV show looked like and what it was like to record. And you got this guy with a monster camera running around, and then the anchor didn't come for another 2 weeks. And I was like, that's how it works? I thought he was here the whole time planning and,
well, in 60 Minutes, it wouldn't be. If they were
Oh,
doing
yeah.
live shots for their local news, for their national news,
Yeah.
it would be. But yeah, there's so much video that has to be shot,
Yeah.
and you only use a tiny fraction of it. It just wouldn't make any sense.
Yeah, so I was just thinking from your perspective on telling those stories and being able to capture all that video and then being able to present it to the outlets, it would just be a lot of work. a lot of
It's a lot of work. It's fun, but it's hard in that you find there's people in the story or
undertaking. Mhm.
characters, even as you would call it in a
Yeah,
not in a fiction, um, or just a, a piece of video that you love that you just can't put in. So
yeah.
you sometimes you have to have a good editor to say, I know you love it, but it doesn't fit, so you have to take it out. Sort of
Yeah.
thing. It's the same with writing too.
So lately in content, and right now content is definitely pushed more towards the text-based content with blogs and articles, but it's moving towards video. And we're seeing a
Yeah.
kind of a renaissance of video. YouTube's now kind of like the second social or search engine out there. And so traditionally we see news journalists from a paper come over to the content world, but you're one of the first examples I knew of, but then I started to see more of visual storytellers who are coming out of news journalism and into content
Mhm.
and then making an amazing splash. Because when I started to look at the Unbound social feeds, I was thrown back. I was like, wow, these are very compelling images and stories. And you could tell somebody who was behind it knew how to tell a quick and compelling story and had to be on that time schedule that is more closely attached to news rather than marketing, which is more long.
Right. Well, I think that's where a television journalist has an advantage,
Mhm.
in that we're used to telling very quick stories and compelling. Sometimes you miss the mark sometimes, which is sort of what social media is about too. It's a lot of testing,
Yeah.
but we are used to that. And I can't tell you how many times I walked into a newsroom where someone handed me a piece of paper with a bunch of facts on it and said, "You're live in 10 minutes."
Oh, wow.
And all I really had time was to put my makeup on.
Yeah.
Isn't that horrible?
Teleprompter,
Yeah.
read.
And the same thing, if you show up at a scene, you may look around and find you're kind of looking for a compelling person to talk to,
Mhm.
because you don't have very much time. It may be a half an hour before you're live, and you've got to turn something around very quickly.
Yep.
And you kind of get trained and used to doing that. Now, really, because it stays out there forever now, it's not just going off into
Yeah.
into space. The emphasis needs to be a lot more on making sure everything is exactly right, and making sure there are no typos, and that all that great stuff is put together in a way that is still sort of a
Yeah.
print look, if you
Exactly.
can pull it off. And sometimes the nice thing, I love that edit function, definitely, but we try to make it so we never have to use it, but occasionally we do. But so I think for television people, especially if you have an eye for video,
Mhm.
you can transition quite well and tell some really great, compelling stories
Yeah.
when you do that.
Hey everyone, my name is Alyssa Murphy. I wanted to tell you about a really exciting update on Instagram. So we all know that Instagram is all about that square grid layout and using square pictures. And that was the only kind of thing you could post to Instagram up until this new update that just hit the Instagram feed. So now, instead of using just square images, you can actually take those more vertical and horizontal images, and Instagram now has a feature that will let you edit that to make it work for their platform. So to show you one of the examples from my feed, last week I went and saw Aziz Ansari at the Oddball Comedy Fest, and it was hilarious. But I wanted to post a picture of Aziz to celebrate going to the show. And this picture I found was definitely more horizontal. It was not square. But Instagram, now when you select a photo, in the selection process, you actually have a button that you can click to change the photo from square to fit the more vertical or horizontal layout that the original picture dimensions have. And it still fits within that square grid that Instagram gives you. And then you can move on from there to apply your filters and your editing and post to your social networks. Now, the interesting thing for brands and users to keep in mind is that even though when you click on an individual image, it will show as more horizontal or vertical, in the actual feed, it will still constrict to be a square image. So keep in mind if you're using a more horizontal or vertical image and you have the most important focal point far on the right, the left, the top, the bottom, make sure that in that square layout you can still get the most important piece of that imagery. Now, for advertisers, this isn't something that means that it's time to go and change your entire strategy. I think of this more as just something to keep in mind because it can ease up your production. For instance, if you have an image that has been made for Twitter that has a more horizontal look, or Pinterest where vertical images perform better, you can now post this to Instagram without having to spend time editing, using an app, or using your creative resources to make it fit for this platform.
It's pretty cool to see that transition. And I can't wait because I think there needs to be more active storytelling and a tie into the imagery that we use in social media and the videos. So I am so excited because I'm just bored with the 800 word posts that are just coming out over and over and over again, regurgitating the same
Isn't that the
information.
fun thing about social media? It's changing all the
Yeah.
time. And what is true and best practice today is not going to be in 3 months. And you don't know what it's going to be. You just know it's probably going to be different.
Yep.
And keeping track of how things are moving, to me, is a lot of fun.
Mhm.
And I still read blogs. I still, obviously, and I think we all are still blogging, but we're all trying to cut through that clutter
Mhm.
because people just, they either don't have the time or they don't have the attention span,
Yeah.
unfortunately. And I'm not sure what that says about us,
Mhm.
but they need to find a way to consume things quickly. And even from the idea of and we still have those beautiful, our communications department puts together these beautiful branded videos that you
Mhm.
can use in all kinds of ways, especially if you have an audience that is live.
Yeah.
But when you're scrolling through your phone and someone sees just your company logo and not some compelling thing that's going to grab them,
Yeah.
then they may just keep on scrolling. So you kind of have to be constantly watching and seeing how people are consuming
Mhm.
things.
And on Instagram with the video interaction there, just the 5-second clip of kids playing will capture your
Yeah.
attention and immediately give you a reaction, an emotional reaction to a brand that you just cannot generate
It's
with a blog.
It's all, yeah, you're right. Well, here's an example of, I guess about a year ago, one of our video editors, I was walking by her desk, and she said, "Elizabeth, look at this." And she had just some video from somewhere in Latin America, and the kids, she was just scanning through the video to log it, and these kids were on a merry-go-round, and there were two dogs, and there was a slide nearby, and she's like, "Look at that dog." The dog runs up the slide, slides down the slide, then jumps on the merry-go-round with the kids to
That's
play. And it
awesome.
was like, that's the cutest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It wasn't staged. It was just, we just happened to see it. Those are the kind of things that I think people are really
Yeah.
gravitating towards. And they really are into authenticity, which has not always been the mark
Yeah.
of marketing.
Especially in nonprofits, because you see the visuals that are used currently are always the down in the dumps, the homeless man sitting on the side of the road,
Yeah.
or the orphan child, in tattered clothing.
The crying,
Oh
the
yeah.
flies, yeah,
And the thing that messed me up most about Haiti was how these were brand new orphan kids. They lost their parents within 2 weeks.
Mm.
They had more fun than my kids and their friends have at home 2 weeks after a major devastation because their world wasn't all about consuming media and watching TV and all this stuff. it was about playing soccer on a gravel field with no shoes on and hanging out with your friends. And I got back on the airplane, and some kid was complaining about the what was available on the TV on the airplane.
Oh, that's a.
And I was just, it messed me
Did
up
you
for
say anything?
months. No, I almost did. I was so ready to just, yeah, but I knew I was coming out of a situation that they didn't get to experience.
Right.
And so ever since that moment, I've been changed about thinking of, because all I saw was this poverty and unhappiness, but I didn't see the education, the opportunities, the fun, the love that's going on in these camps that the kids are literally sleeping in tents outside.
It is they are different worlds. And I've had people say, you need to really kind of brace yourself for reentry into our
Hmm.
culture because we don't get it in so many ways. But but one of the beauties of working in international, as you illustrated with that story, is with international work you see like true happiness,
Yeah.
true family love and devotion, and an incredible drive to to improve your own life or your child's, and without all of those material things that we so badly or think we need.
Hmm.
And one of the things that I was so impressed with Unbound is, I mean, I've met kids and moms all over the world who just have inspired me to be a better human being.
Hmm.
One of the things I love, though, we did a video or a documentary film a few years ago called Rise and Dream. It was set in the Philippines. And all of the kids, they wanted to get an education and get a good job so they could take care of their parents, so they could do
Oh,
something
wow.
back for their parents. And I say to my 17-year-old, is that what you're going to college? I'm
Exactly.
going to go to college for next
Mom wants to
year.
retire soon.
But even she will say, and she's been with me on many of these trips, and she'll complain about something, or I will complain about
Hmm.
something.
Oh,
She'll
yeah.
say, first world problem, Mom.
Yep.
So I try to keep that in my mind. I bet you do too. And I
Oh,
think
yeah.
that's one of the reasons that I really want to get the word out about Unbound and what we do and get other people involved because it enriches you.
Yes.
It doesn't just help those people
Exactly. It's more
out in
than
the
just
world.
the $30 check. It is getting involved. It's meeting the child you're adopting. It's so much more of a life experience.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's more than just a tax deduction.
yeah. And well, we say sponsoring, but it's like that. And you build a really wonderful relationship.
Mhm.
They teach you a lot about their culture and their lives and their values.
Mhm.
And I say to people, can you imagine? And again, met people in so many different parts of the world who only dream of America and
Mhm.
don't only know it from maybe a movie or a picture or something. And to get a letter from someone in America saying, I believe in you and you can do it, and encouraging them, you can't even quantify that.
Yeah.
It's
No,
just,
it's something that it's one of their most precious items at
hmm
that point. And it's amazing. You see the kids, they have a collection of their precious items, and you look in there and you're like, there are other people that have, that have attached to this child and have helped them, and I get to be part of that. It's pretty compelling.
it is cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
And as you can see, it makes for great stories too. Lots of great
Exactly.
stories.
So one of the most exciting stories, that you guys have shown recently is some of the interaction that we've talked about kind of in the field. What goes into kind of the social media side of it? How do you prep like for Instagram versus Twitter? Do you do anything special, or do you just kind of just do a?
Well, we have a lot of moving parts at Unbound. We have our projects in the field. There are communications liaisons in the field. We have a communications department that is separate from us, and we also have a social media team that is cross-functional.
Oh, yeah.
So we have different people here's a person who is in charge, tasked with coming up with the Instagram post for the next week, and someone who we have a couple social media coordinators right now who work a lot on our Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn, and but our video department usually uploads everything video to YouTube that's substantial.
Mhm.
So it's kind of we're always sort of having something's moving all the time,
Mhm.
and we come together every other week for a social media meeting, and a lot of times we are reviewing best practices, or we go over analytics, we see how things have worked, we can see a trend of how quote graphics are still so popular for
Mhm.
our people, and they find those inspirational. So we try to see where we would plug those in. We do like we all get around together to do Twitter planning for the Super Bowl,
Yep.
for the World Cup, and we look for either with the commercials or with just whatever's happening, especially when they're players from the field,
Yeah.
who are in the countries where we work. So we do a lot of planning like that, and it's like during the Super Bowl, my husband's like, "Get off your social media." I'm like, "No, I'm just tweeting at that Doritos commercial
Yeah, I'm
because we already did
excited.
the hashtag."
Yeah, I saw you did something with a sporting player who last year.
Yeah, we have Roger
Yeah.
Espinoza, who is from Honduras, who is going to be, we're going to announce it this week. I'll send you a copy of the news release.
Awesome.
He's going to be doing some work with us and some volunteering with us. We're really excited to
Oh,
have
yeah.
him. And he is the nicest guy in the world. I
Yeah.
just have enjoyed him so much. And I think he's going to be a great encouragement to our kids, both in Honduras and around the world.
Oh
So,
yeah, you could send a football player and like, what's football? But you send a soccer player
oh, they're
from the United
excited. Yeah,
States.
very
It's like
excited.
the king just came to town. That's great. So we have a section called the threes, and I ask our guests to give 3 tips. And so the tips I would like you to give today are, if as a marketer, what are some tips you would give me to help me tell more compelling and visual stories through content?
I would say, in terms of one of start with a quality photograph if you can. The better the photograph, the better the content you're going to have, and it is different. And I know that's kind of a simple thing, but it
So many
is.
people miss
We
the
see a
mark.
lot of people, and I see a lot of, especially nonprofits, who will post something that looks like it should be sort of a branded thing
Mhm.
that's not a great compelling photo. And so start with a compelling photo. My second tip, though, is don't always use a branded looking slick photo.
Yeah.
Look authentic. Have some kind of authentic looking um, content that doesn't look like somebody in a marketing meeting dreamed it up. I think those are the things we're getting the most engagement
Yeah.
on. And then the other thing is, you know, test, practice. Don't be afraid to make a mistake. And when you put up, use your cell phone. That's one of the best ways to get fun video and
Mhm.
try it. And if it doesn't work, then you can say, well, I guess we won't try that again. But, and obviously it needs to be, it has to be, meet all of your standards
Yep.
and your brand standards, but try some things, especially video wise, and not through YouTube. As everybody
Yeah.
probably knows, you put it right to Facebook because they don't really love it when you put a link from YouTube. They want it right on there.
Yeah.
So those are probably my 3 things that I would say. And then this is not necessarily about creating content, but tie to those important stories and news stories that affect you. Don't newsjack to a way that makes you look kind of slimy, which
Yeah.
we've seen, but be part of that conversation if there's a reason to do it. And even if you don't get the most engagement on that, I know when we put up a story that's like our news,
Mhm.
like a news story, it's not going to get like 100 shares, but it's something that's kind of important. And it lets people know that we are
Yeah.
in the conversation. We know what's happening, and we are a thought leader in what we are all about, which
Yeah.
is helping people in poverty.
Yeah, it's not all about the happy, fun times or even the bad times. There's still education to be involved. There's still how-to going on.
Yeah.
But then there's also these experiences
Mix it
and
up.
stories.
Now
Yeah.
I know that's way more than 3. So
That's fine. Everyone always says,
Sorry.
well, we do bonuses.
Okay, good.
It's 3 is the minimum. So as we start to wrap this up, who do you go to for inspiration and find ideas?
Well, I'll just tell you, the people I go to for inspiration are those people in the field that we serve. They don't even know what social media is most of the time, but they have these bright thoughts and grateful spirits and beautiful smiles,
Mhm.
and they are what inspire me. And for what I really want to do is I want to take that feeling that I have, that moment, and translate it so that you feel it too.
Yeah.
And they inspire me to do that. And every day I try to do that. And some days I do better than others, but I always think tomorrow I'm even going to do it even better.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for coming out. I
thanks
can't
for
wait to
having
publish this
me.
and then maybe do a follow-up and we'll come down to your guys' office
Oh,
and see
yes,
some cool
please come
stuff.
down. Yeah, that'd be great. You can do your video podcast from our offices.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Or the field sometime.
The
You should
field,
sponsor
yeah.
a child and come do it
And
from
I'll
the field.
hop on a plane and grab my gear.
I'll bring you. I'll take you with us.
All righty. Well, thank you.
Thanks.